Kong in the trunk. King Kong, King Kong.
I'm back. Road Rants with the continuing video podcast series. This time, horror podcast. I've got different incarnations of these podcasts if you're new to the channel. Started doing political ones. Just regular pop culture ones. Right now, I'm counting down Star Wars movies. From worst to best. Star Wars properties, I guess I should say. And horror podcast. And these just started. This was a Patreon requested topic that was actually on my list anyway. And we started the horror podcast by counting down Friday the 13th films. This is my favorite horror franchise. I know everybody that's been watching these have heard this, but I'm trying to let anybody new know exactly what's going on. These video podcasts are completely informal, and the camera itself is of lesser importance than it would be in a formal video where I'm looking at the camera and I'm talking about one topic, blah, blah, blah. In these, I sort of review the movie, and I know a lot about these Friday the 13th movies. As much as I know about Star Wars, I know at least as much about these films. Maybe more, if you want to know the truth. And I owned a horror website for 10 years. Back in the day, from probably 2001 to about 2011, something like that. And for a time, for maybe a year or two, it was in the top 5 horror websites in the world. Unfortunately, there wasn't any money in that. It was really tough to monetize regular, non-adult oriented websites. Let's put it that way. Look, when you're using Google AdSense, and Google's telling you you're getting 40,000 views a month, and you look at your analytics and you're like, odd, because GoDaddy was hosting our platform, and we had grown so much that GoDaddy, our servers were going down at times. We were getting hit so hard with traffic. And I remember we had days, if a big story would come out, we had some 30 and 40 and 50,000 hit days. And GoDaddy servers would go down for our website. And Google was like, yeah, you had 40,000 views last month. And we're like, I show we had 450,000 views. So what do? It was like, wow, so we should be making 10 times this amount off our website. And you might be like, well, what's the monetary difference there? About $3,000 in 1 month or whatever it was back then, So, and we just realized you just couldn't find sponsorship for it. Drink break early on. I've actually got another video I've already shot, but I wanted to shoot this and I wanted to get this out tonight. So we're counting down these movies, and I very quickly, you can go through the list. Instead of me telling you what's already come prior, you can go through the list, the previous podcast, and watch those. And these are much longer videos. So we are on number 7, and ironically enough, it's also film 7 in the series. Was that intentional? Absolutely not, right? Absolutely not, as part 5 was number 12, right? Now, this one, like some of the other ones, had working titles that they brought when people came in to audition, et cetera, et cetera. And while they were being filmed, they had a alternative name. Very common in the film industry. Like one of the recent Star Wars sequels, I think, was called Trixie. Might have been The Rise of Skywalker. Hell, I don't know. I think The Last Jedi was Dumpster Fire. I don't know. Whatever. Tire Fire. Something like that. Dumpster Fire rolling downhill on a tire fire. I don't know. So, this movie was called Birthday Bash. And it was because the meat of the story, or the story itself, would take place around a birthday party that they were having down on Crystal Lake. Now that sounds really interesting, but it's really just very much a side note in the story if you want to know the truth. Now, interesting note, this movie, they came out after Part 6 a couple of years later, and they were already, at the time, they had tried to make this in the Freddy versus Jason. 15 years before Freddy versus Jason would finally see the screen, they had tried to do it this early. This was released May 13th, 1988. Freddy vs. Jason didn't come out till 2003. And, of course, it's from the time that New Line actually got the Jason Voorhees character. It even spent 10 more years in development hell. Because they just couldn't find the story they wanted for Freddy vs. Jason. So, Frank Mancuso, they got a director. He directed Troll. John Carl Buechler was a very well-known makeup effects artist, like Tom Savini. Was he as well-known as Tom Savini? Probably not, but in the industry, yeah. Yeah, but to horror fans, everybody, Tom Savini in the horror community was kind of a household name. Well, John Carl Buechler would become a household name in the horror community after this movie. And there's a funny story where they actually had John Carl in to talk to him and said, hey, do you want to do a Friday the 13th Part 7? And he was like, had his agent there, Frank Mancuso Jr., who was the executive producer on these. He looked at both of them and said, not really. And Mancuso and his agent were both like, what? And he was like, well, you've already made 6 of these, right? Pretty funny. Pretty funny. But he was like, well, if I can do something different. And Frank Mancuso was like, what do you got in mind? He came up with this story that would later, in like horror legend, this movie would be known as Jason versus Carrie. And you might be like, Carrie? Yeah, remember Sissy Spacek? Carrie, the bad bitch, the badass bitch with the telekinetic crazy powers? This actress, Laura Park Lincoln, plays a character called Tina. And she has telekinetic powers. Now, I know that's kind of a supernatural spin. I don't love supernatural horror. But we got to remember, in Part 6, Jason was a zombie. Tommy Jarvis resurrected him. Jason was deader than fuck coming out of Part 4. Super dead. Truly dead. If Tommy Jarvis hadn't done the cemetery thing, Jason would have never come back and killed a solitary mother. Ever. It was over. Well, so Jason's a zombie. Well, we left Part 6 with Jason at the bottom of the lake. And we get Tina as a young child at the beginning of this movie. She has an abusive father to her mother. And they live out on Crystal Lake. And you might be thinking, they live on Crystal Lake where Jason is? Yeah, but we got to remember, Tommy left him in the bottom of the lake. Okay? And Part 6 essentially takes place over one day. So Jason had been dead for years. Then Tommy resurrected him. And then over the course of, let's say, call it 24 hours, Jason's back in the lake. He's chained up to a huge rock on a chain. He can't get out. All right. Is he alive? Yeah. Even at the end of Part 6, you see his eyes. Oh, his eyes are open. Looks like he's madder than fuck down there, too. But he can't get out. So anyway, he's been underwater 7 years is the timeline. And John Carl did a great job with effects in this movie. Now, this movie's also known for one other big note. This was the legendary Kane Hodder's first portrayal of Jason, and in my opinion, his best portrayal. It's definitely in the top 3 best portrayals of Jason, in my opinion, in the series. I know this film's down at number 7 on my list, but far as singular movie portrayals, he's in the top 3, okay, in this movie. He really gives Jason a personality in this movie. He really does. And we see Jason both incarnations, with the mask on and with the mask off. And John Carl did one of the best jobs on Kane Hodder with the mask off, of giving him a zombie look, but a zombie with personality. And when I tell you, there are times in this movie with the mask off and even with the mask on where Jason looks pissed. I mean, he does a phenomenal job of making Jason look mad as hell. Like, just, I'm about to fuck you up, bitch. Kind of pretty funny, actually, you know. So anyway, as a kid, we start the movie out as a young Tina. Her father, she hears her folks fighting. She goes and gets in a boat, goes out in the water. Dad chases her out. He walks up onto the dock, and she uses her telekinetic powers. She's mad, and she can't control it very good back then. So she gets mad, and the dock falls in on her father, and she kills her dad. So this traumatizes her, right? And she goes to a mental hospital. Flash forward all these years later, and 7 years later, and she is out, and her mother are on the way back out to their house to Crystal Lake. You might be like, damn, they're going back out there? Yes, but at the request of her psychiatrist, played by, and I talked about if there was somebody famous in these movies, I would tell you. Because it's kind of known for every so many films, there's an actor that would become big. Well, ironically enough, he was about to become pretty big. He was a character actor. Terry Kaiser. Terry Kaiser, and you might be like, why does that name seem familiar? He is Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's and Weekend at Bernie's 2. Weekend at Bernie's, people forget that it was a really big hit to the point it spawned a theatrical release sequel. And it was a big hit because not only did it do pretty well in the theater, but Weekend at Bernie's absolutely killed it on video and on pay movie services like HBO and Cinemax. And it got this massive cult following to the point they released a sequel. And Weekend at Bernie's came out, I think the same year this came out, 88 or 89. Might have been 88. And the sequel came out in 93. I'm one of the 4 people that saw Weekend at Bernie's 2 in the theater. I was going to the movies like twice a week back then. I was 17. And I've always been a massive movie fan. And I used to go to the movies a lot. Up until about 10 years ago, I'd go maybe at least once a week. Sometimes up to 3 times in 1 week I'd go to the movies. Matinees, but I'd go, right? And 99-cent theaters used to be big around here. So you could go catch a movie in the theater pretty cheap. So anyway, and that's not the only place I'd go, but if it was a lesser movie I wanted to see, I'd wait till it hit the 99-cent theater and then I'd go, right? Now, if it was something big, you know, I was like, shit, I got to go open tonight, right? And spend $25. You know, and sometimes you're like, damn, I went and saw this open tonight, really? It is what it is. So, we flash forward They get to the house, and the reason that her psychiatrist wants her out there is he wants emotion out of Tina. Because when she gets emotional, that's when her telekinetic powers work out. And if you have not seen this movie and you're just... Well, I know I have a lot of people that actually watch these because they're like, I love to hear you talk about it, even though I haven't seen these movies. Imagine a Jedi without the mind trick and without the lightsaber. But you know how Jedis have the ability to do stuff, move shit around, do stuff, blah, blah, blah? Or Carrie. So we're staring down the barrel of Jason versus a Jedi. Okay? Kind of cool if you think about it for you Star Wars fans. I'm a big Star Wars fan, right? So anyway, we have the normal, here comes the other kids in the house right across the driveway. We've seen that formula in past Friday movies. They're having a birthday party. By the way, the person going to the party, he'll never make it. Okay? Jason kills his ass out in the woods. Okay? Now, I like to bring up, are there any good deaths in this movie? Well, there's a couple of takeaways. This movie was the #1 most chopped movie by the ratings board ever. Maybe the honorable mention was Jason Goes to Hell. But John Carl went all out on the deaths in this movie. And I've seen the alternate deaths because they're on the documentary, and I think there's a deluxe edition. I own some of the deluxe edition of these movies. I think they're in my storage building. Anyway, he went all out, and almost all the deaths were cut. Almost all of them were cut. But the most memorable death in the movie was one that was cut. And I agree, Kane Hodder said, I believe the cut version was better. And I think he's right, even though there's not a lot of blood or anything. This is the Friday movie that's got the infamous original Jason sleeping bag kill. He busts through a tent. Woman's in a sleeping bag. She pulls it up because she gets scared. He takes it out, picks up the sleeping bag, and he whacks it one time against a tree and kills her ass. And it's very brutal and very effective. Slam. She's dead. And it's very cool. And it's known as one of the better deaths in the franchise. And that's, that's the thing. These things, people want to see the innovative ways that people try to get killed. And boy, there were some good ones cut out of this movie. The rest of them, not worth a shit, really. When you consider after they got through being cut, all to hell, wasn't worth a damn. So I don't know why I'm getting all these fucked up little flies in the house. Anyway, it's driving me up a tree. So anyway, I live out in the country. It is what it is. So again, informal video. I'm not cutting that shit out. Y'all are getting a real life hangout right now. Is kind of what's happening. I thought about doing this live, actually. This one tonight. I thought about it. I'm going to start going live again pretty soon. I used to go live every week, but I just haven't done it. So, anyway, we get some very run-of-the-mill kills. They weren't run-of-the-mill till they completely chopped them down. John Carl tried. One of the problems with all of these movies, except really and truly the top two, and maybe one other one, Ancillary Characters are pretty poor. The acting is not great. They're just not real interesting. So, and the problem is, when ancillary characters are not interesting, you just kind of want to hurry up and get them killed. Let's get them killed. You hope it's going to be really cool and innovative, and so that's going to be the thing. Actually, I guess there's four of these movies that's got pretty good ancillary characters. We're not there yet. 5 of these movies, maybe. Okay. So I stand corrected on. Well, the bottom 5 or 6 really struggle for me with ancillary characters. Even the original movie, the ancillary characters to me weren't great. They weren't great. So we get these ancillary characters dispatched, and Dr. Cruz, Tina had come in and she had this falling out with Dr. Cruz because he did not want her to see a boy that is next door. An actor by the name of Kevin Blair was kind of a pseudo boyfriend interest of Tina's. And it's odd because I did not know this till I saw the second documentary. Kevin Blair is gay in real life. And Laura Park Lincoln and Kevin Blair was saying they were having chemistry problems. And I was floored by that because I thought, wow, I thought they had great chemistry between each other in this movie. And evidently, they didn't really like each other that much. It was like, it's not working because he had no attraction to her because he's gay. And gay in real life, right? But you could not see it on screen. To me, and it's kind of weird because him as an actor, especially when he was younger, this was 1988, he very much favors Christopher Reeve. And you can't tell that he doesn't like her in this movie. So I find that wild that behind the scenes, they thought they had no chemistry because on screen, I thought it worked out great. I would have never thought the dude was gay, ever. And it doesn't matter. He did a fine job as an actor. So that tells you right there, in today's terms, everybody's okay if a gay guy plays a straight dude. But good God, if a straight dude plays a gay guy, everybody loses their mind. In 1988, nobody gave a fuck about that kind of crap. That tells you how much times have changed, not for the better. It's called acting. So, anyway, that's a quick side note, but everybody that watches this channel, sort of aligns in that direction, and they get it. So, anyway, we go through this. She gets in a fight with Dr. Cruz, Terry Kaiser. She goes out, she's standing by the lake, and she sees a vision. There's somebody in the lake. Well, maybe that's my father that I collapsed the dock on. And he's alive, I think. So I'm going to bring him up. Well, she brought him up, all right. It was Jason. It wasn't her daddy. Okay? So, and John Carl did a absolute great job. Great job on Jason. Makeup was on point. They made it look like that he had been underwater for years and years. It made him look like his clothes, his skin had been picked away by fish. His backbone and some of his ribs are exposed. Phenomenal job on Jason in this movie. Phenomenal. The mask shows water wear on it. I mean, it is an awesome look for Jason. It really is. It's a great look. And it works. So I guess Tina is actually off to the side, and I guess Jason doesn't see her. Or maybe he's in just a different part of the lake, actually. But he comes up out of the water and walks out and goes somewhere, and she passes out. Okay, so in other words, Jason obviously didn't see her, or he'd have killed her right there, because he goes off in the woods and he kills some folks. I mean, he goes right back to doing what he's doing. She goes back in and she tells everybody there was somebody in the lake, and I think they came out of the lake, blah, blah, blah. And she come walking out of a house, and there was a spike stuck in one of the posts out there. Come to find out, the psychiatrist later on stuck that spike in a post to get her emotional. Because when she got emotional, he wanted to study her powers. That's what he cared about. That's why she was out there. He was a scumbag. Terry Kaiser did a really good job of playing a scumbag. Okay? And so anyway, the ancillary characters start dying off. Like I said, the birthday boy never makes the birthday party. I think it's her love interest cousin or something like that. Which, by the way, her and him get out in the woods and they find his cousin dead. They start finding bodies and shit, and they're like, oh, fuck. Bodies are piling up. So they go back to the house. She's worried about her mother. Her mother's gone. Well, her mother's in the woods with the fucking doctor looking for Tina. Well, Jason's out there. And the scumbag psychiatrist holds Mama in front of Jason, and Jason kills Mama. And then the scumbag psychiatrist runs off. You can't make this shit up. So, anyway, he runs off. And later on, Tina comes back into the woods, runs into Dr. Cruz. Have you seen my mother? She's back at the house, Tina. Shh, shh. He's trying to get her to be quiet. Why do you have blood on your hands? She starts getting real emotional. He's like, shh, shh, shh. And then he's like, stay here, Tina, stay here. And she's like, I got to go find my mom. She runs off, and very cool, Terry Kaiser yells, Tina, don't go in there. And when he says that, Jason steps out from somewhere. She's running off. Jason steps out. Jason wants him right now. Jason's good in getting single-minded to a victim. I want this victim, and then I'll go to the next one, okay? And there was a really cool kill that was originally shot with a weed whacker / circular saw contraption, and it was completely cut out of the movie. But in the original cut, there's all kinds of like guts coming out and all kinds of stuff. We don't get to see none of it till later on. They showed it in the documentary and stuff. And I think maybe the deluxe edition gets it back in there, but I don't know. I think maybe they're on the deluxe edition as the original old deleted scenes. And so they look kind of rough because they hadn't been finished up. But the effects are done. And anyway, this all comes around. And this whole time, all these years, and I've probably seen this movie 50 times, all these years I always thought, man, the third act is really good. And then I watched it last night, and when business started picking up, I was like, ooh, what time is it that her and Jason really start getting it on? And then I looked, and I was like, the 15.5-minute mark left in the movie. So her and Jason don't start getting down and fighting till the 15.5-minute mark. But when it starts, it's really fun. And you could see shades of things to come from Freddy versus Jason. It was kind of interesting. Because there's a couple of moments where it's a couple of similar things happen, actually. But there's a really cool scene where she comes running out from the woods. She finds out her mother's dead, and she's pissed. She's upset, she's emotional, and she's pissed. She runs out into an old, it's been raining. They're dirt roads. They're muddy. There's puddles, deep puddles, you know. We see that in East Texas. She runs out into the road, and Jason is standing there under a street light. And it is a very, very cool scene. It's a cool scene. It's kind of a creepy scene. And the camera, like, does this pan in on both of them. Like it's about to be a showdown. And she's pissed. She even says, Jason. And she's pissed. And Jason's standing there. And he's getting ready to take a step. And he takes a couple of steps into a puddle. Well, all of a sudden, he's looking over because the tree limbs start moving. And he's like, what the hell? And then the limbs of the tree start crawling out. Very cool. And start wrapping him up. And I told you, Kane is great emotionally in this as Jason. Well, he's looking down at all this happening, and he looks up at her, and he's still got the mask on. And he's like, I mean, he's got that Kane Hodder deep heaving going. And he shakes his head like, bitch, I'm going to fuck you up. And then, boom, she drops him with them limbs face first into the puddle. And she snaps a power line. And that electrical line is snaking over to the water. And bloop into the puddle. Electrocutes the shit out of Jason. When she goes to go run back to the house to go by Jason, boom, he pops up. And she runs on around him. He pops up like, bitch, that ain't going to do it. I've been electrocuted. I can't tell you. Bitch, lightning struck me, okay? That's not going to take care of the job. But it's really cool. Very cool stuff. But the fight is on. So they get back to the house. He goes in the house. They're in the party house right now. And she's going in rooms. She's shutting doors behind her. He's throwing them open. She put a table over in front of the door. Comes flying over in front of the door. He slings it back. I mean, Kane brings a real physicality to Jason. And something Derek Mears would bring later, too. So she levitates a couch. A big-ass couch, boom, right over on top of him. And I remember this, and then when I was watching it last night, I was still like, all these years later, wow. Kane just flips that couch off of him like nothing. I'm like, damn. Kane's a big boy. Kane is, like I said prior, Kane Hodder is a legend. He's a legend in the horror community, and he is known as Jason. And Victor Crowley, but Jason. And he pops back up, you know. And she runs out of the house, and he takes a couple of steps out, and she's waiting for him outside. There's a big overhang roof on the porch. We go one of them all the way across the front porches. She drops that whole roof and everything on him. Bloom. Now you're thinking, I know he's not dead, but he ain't getting out of there just super quick because of the sheer weight of everything. So she gets back over to the other house, the original house. There's this chick that likes Tina's love interest, and she's a total bitch. The actress that played her committed suicide, rest in peace, did a great job as a super snotty chick named Melissa. Well, they're both over there, and Tina's like, the guy is telling Melissa, look, you don't want to go over there. There's a guy running around. He's killing people, and she looks at him. She's like, you're both fucking crazy, because they know Tina's been in the mental place, the mental hospital or mental facility or whatever, and Melissa's snotty. And they're like, do not go outside. And she turns around and looks at both of them, and she's like, fuck you both. And she opens the front door, and Jason is standing there with a fucking axe. A show-enough axe with one hand. Whack! Right here. takes a couple of steps in, grabs her head, and flings her, bloop, over a TV. And it is like, whoa. Patented awesome Kane Hodder. So, and then he's got him sort of boxed in and shit. Well, finally, they get him squirted around Jason. They're heading upstairs. And as Jason's going upstairs, Tina swings this light fixture. Boom! Hits him in the head. And Kane's doing physical stunts in this thing. He's a stuntman by trade. He falls back, boom, through the floor. Through the floor. Very cool. Very cool stuff. And they're looking over. And so they're having to try to get down. So they get downstairs. And they're looking over. And boom, Jason pulls her. Well, actually, Jason gets a hold of the guy. And he's like knocked out. And Jason puts his foot, I think, on the guy's head or on top of his body, and he's trying to crush him. She gets really pissed, and she starts squeezing the straps on Jason's mask into his head. And you start seeing like juice and stuff from his skull and his head start coming out where she is squeezing the straps on that mask into his head. And he turns around and he looks at her, and she squeezes it too tight, and boom, it just pops off of him, and that's what he looks like. That's the scene right there with the makeup where he's like, but he realizes it's her. He knows it's her doing all this weird shit to me right now. And she's trying to hurt me anyway. And my dog's being goofy as hell over here. So anyway, she's like literally waving at me. Hey, goof. Hey, goofy. Anyway, Gracie. So anyway, they get downstairs in the basement. And she's knocking over nails, shooting nails into his forehead. He's breaking them off, and he's looking at her like, bitch, I'm going to kill your ass. And she gets a gas can, and the freaking funnel comes out of it, and she starts squirting gas all over him, and she lights a furnace on back there, like a big the furnace thing. It's got flames, and it starts shooting flames out, and flames go all around Jason, and Jason's looking around at what's going on, and he looks up at her, and he's really, Kane does a great job. Bitch, I am motherfucking pissed. And then, boom, she flames his ass. And Kane Hodder has one of the longest burn scenes, I think, in the history of film. Now, Kane has actually been burnt in real life in a stunt that went bad. And he's got a lot of burn marks on him. And he had already had those burn marks. But he's big on, he's going to do his own stunts. I think they said he was on fire for over 30 seconds, which is a long, long time. Long time. And then the guy wakes up, and they both run out of the house. And then the house explodes because of gas. And they, sure enough, blew up a house. And on a weird side note, the explosion was rigged too big. And evidently, it melted a bunch of the cameras and the film, because they had multiple cameras set up to shoot this explosion. And they came away with it with all of 3 seconds of footage between the cameras. So they had to splice it together. They was like, damn, we blew up a home. We almost didn't get any of it. But they got enough to make it work. And yeah, it's a hell of a big... You can tell on camera, it's like, whoa, that seems like a big explosion for a Friday the 13th movie. And they blow the shit out of that house in real life. On a side note, They shot this in Alabama. They had to have a guy out there to keep the gators away. Pretty cool. Because it was on a lake and there was gators everywhere. So I thought that was pretty cool. And they actually, in the documentary, they show a picture of the guy, the gator wrangler or whatever. He's just some old-looking dude out there in a flat-bottom boat that's supposed to keep the gators away. We know what that's like in Texas. Hell, I grew up at Caddo, so I know. So even some lakes I go fishing at around here, you need to watch your step. There could be a gator around. I swear to God there's one out here in this community lake, but nobody believes me. So anyway, that's a side note, but I thought it was pretty funny. And then Jason's not dead. So Jason turns around, knocks the guy out into a boat. And this is where it's weird because everything in the third act, or in at least the last 20 minutes, has been really good by horror movie standards. And this is terrible. Really bad. The boat dock they're on opens up, and her dead father comes up out of the water, throws a chain around Jason's neck, and pulls him under the water, and that's where it ends. Terrible. Terrible. As much as I like this movie, that one part, right at the very end, that one part, it hurts this film. Along with the poor ancillary characters, or this film would have been higher because, the last 20 minutes or so is really, really good. Really good. By horror movie standards, really good. I mean, we're not grading on a scale like The Departed or Goodfellas, right? Some movie like that. I'm giving you horror movie grading, okay? I know they're not supposed to be ultra serious movies, blah, blah, blah. Bobby De Niro's not coming out and doing acting, okay? They're not. You're talking about a bunch of C&D actors trying to do something right now. So, I gave the previous movie, which was the original Friday the 13th, 6.5. I'll give this a 6.75. There was not a lot of difference separating this movie and that movie. Okay, but we got up into the pretty good range. Whereas the movie before it, okay. Somewhere between okay and pretty good, which was Jason Goes to Hell. And then the movies prior that was just flat poor. Right? Or Jason Goes to Hell got, an okay. Very, very average. So, my dog just came to see me. Point of doing a podcast, right? Hey, baby. So, anyway, 6.75, a 0.25 higher than the original. And, look, was the acting probably a little bit better in the original? And I know a lot of people will be like, you put a new blood ahead of the original? I've said these movies for me are about Jason. But the original was so good that even without Jason, I had to give it a pretty 6.5 rating. I know Jason wasn't supposed to be in the movie. It was Pamela. I get all that. I know all the lore. I know these movies inside and out. But for me, these movies are about Jason, okay? So, 6.75 out of 10. The next movie, we will take a little step up. And then the next movie, we'll take a step up. And then my top 4 are good. Like good. My top 2 are excellent. And they are damn near tied. And as far as I'm concerned, in horror history and in Friday history, they are two legendary films. And there's going to be a little controversy. There's going to be some controversy going forward. Because I know a movie is on my list high that a lot of Friday fans claim they don't love. But when it came out, everybody loved it. And then it became cool about 6 months later to hate it. And we'll talk about that when we get there. But I think it's got the best portrayal of Jason ever. So, in my opinion, anyway. Tell me what you think, Rhodes Squadron. I know Mr. Matrix has seen all these movies. He likes Jason too. And I'm talking. I had a request from Chubby Teddy the other day about John Carpenter movies. Now, I'm going to do the Halloween films as a separate list. But I would consider, I might do my top 5 John Carpenter movies. It would require me to do some real research because I don't know I've seen all those movies and I've seen them all multiple times, but I don't know the ins and outs of them as well as I do these Friday films or those Halloween movies or maybe those Chainsaw movies. But I'm certainly willing to research it because I think Carpenter would be real fun. Really fun. You got a lot of contenders in there. You know, I don't know if I would... Halloween's on that list. You got The Thing. You've got They Live. You've got Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, you've got a lot of movies to choose from that are all vying for a spot, certainly in the top 5. And I can tell you, that top 2 or 3 would be a rough. I'd have to sit there, probably take multiple days to consider what would be number 1. I wouldn't mind doing top Arnold movies too. I know we did that on a live stream, me and John, and we've talked about bringing the top 10 list back because it was popular. People loved us counting down. Every week we did a new subject, like top 10 best action stars of all time. You know, top 10 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies of all time. Top 10 Harrison Ford movies of all time. We did, all kinds. Top 10 non-MCU, DCEU comic movies. And then we did top 10 comic movies. We did all kinds of different lists. All kinds. We might bring that. We talked about bringing that back and doing top 10 Star Wars characters or something. We were talking about bringing top 10 movies back. Or top 10 list. Because, yeah, it was very popular on the channel. So, tell me what you think about The New Blood. Friday 7. Where would it be on your list? And as always, as I know, there's a couple of people that always want to take shots about what is the next one going to be. I'm not entirely sure I know yet. I think I know, but we'll see. There was a couple of these that I thought were slam dunk, certain positions, and then when I really zeroed in, actually, I'm pretty sure I know what the next one is. Like 99.75%. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
King Kong in the trunk. King Kong, King Kong, King Kong.